Welcome to AAU Teen Talk TV. You're watching Conversations with Verdel Jones, and I'm your host, Verdel Jones. As an educator at heart, I'm dedicated to sharing relevant, concrete, and timely information in the hopes that you learn something that you may not have known. We have an awesome show planned for you this afternoon, so I'm so excited to bring it to you. But before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsors, Mr. and Mrs. Roger and Shavonna Johnson. They are the founders of the Whitney E. Johnson Foundation. They're the executive producers of AAU Teen Talk TV and radio, and they're also the founders of AAU Teen Talk Magazine. You can find out more information if you go to their website, which is wejfoundation.org, and be sure to order your youth magazine today. For more information about me, Verdel Jones, you can visit my website. It's deliteach, DELITEACH.com. I'm so excited to let all of you know that I am going to, I'm an author, a new author, and the name of my book is called The Parent Agent: How to Represent Your Child and Get Them into the College of Their Choice. So check that out at deliteach.com, and you can pre-order that today. So I really want to jump into our conversation that we're going to have. We're going to be talking about access to quality education for all students, and we have the honor and privilege to have, when you think of education, one of the names that pops into my mind is Dr. Steve Perry, and we have the honor, as I said, to have him live in our studio via Skype. Let me just tell you a little bit about Dr. Perry. Dr. Perry is one of the most talked about innovative educators on the scene today. So if there's a conversation about education and educating all of our students, you best believe he's going to be in the mix of that. He is the founder of Capital Prep Magnet School in Hartford, Connecticut. He has sent 100% of predominantly low-income minority students and first-generation high school graduates to four-year school since the first graduating class in 2006. So that's something definitely to be proud of. And he believes that success is determined not where you start, but where you, where you end. So we are excited to have him. He's also a contributor to CNN, MSNBC, to Essence Magazine, and he was the host of the TV One docu-series, number one docudrama, I should say, Save My Son. So we are so excited to have Dr. Perry here with us. So good afternoon, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon. I'm excited to be with you.
Excellent, excellent. You know what? I want to jump right in and just give people kind of a sense of your background. Like, how did you get involved in the field of education? What was your trajectory to this profession?
I'm a social worker. I have my master's in social work, and was given access to a quality education not through the traditional school that I went to, but I was in an upper bound program, and I saw a program that identified children based upon their desire to go to college, not so much by the circumstances into which they were born. Children who were born poor and whose parents themselves had not gone to college. So having seen that, I wanted to do what I could to be part of the solution. Initially, when I came out of grad school, I ran a homeless shelter and then worked at a college, and that was no fun. And so I started one of the programs that was the same type of program that I'd gone through. And then that program grew into Capital Prep in Hartford, and that has grown into the Capital Preparatory Schools. And we now are going to open our third school in Harlem,
nice,
New York.
And a lot of discussion has been surrounding the fact that you are opening up a school in Harlem. How did that kind of come about? And I know you said you had a school in Harlem. I was just speaking to someone earlier, and you have a school in Bridgeport as well. How did the school in Harlem come about, and are there other schools across, within the area that you have?
We started the school in Hartford, and things had gone pretty well. I ended up on television, strange thing to happen to somebody who just wanted to run a good school,
right? But
it did. And along the way, what happened was I had met Sean Combs. He pulled me aside and he said, nobody knows this about me, but I've always wanted to start my own school. And I said, good luck with that. He said, no, I actually thought that you and I should do it.
Really?
Like, well, I already have a school. And he said, but what if we did it together? it wasn't that I didn't think that he was committed to it. It just was
Right.
that I didn't feel the commitment. I wanted to run our little school and then let my youngest graduate from it in 7 years and then just walk off into the sunset. And I would be done with education.
Right.
And I would find something else to do with my life. I didn't know what, but I just figured I would do it. And Puff can be a pretty convincing cat. So for about 2 years, he would send me texts and give me a call, and he'd say, "Hey man, what's going on with my school?"
Wow.
And so and I tried to convince him to do everything but open a school. Honestly, I said, "Why don't you do a scholarship, man?
Right.
Why don't, like famous and rich people do scholarships. So why don't you give out turkeys on Thanksgiving?" He said, "No, I'm not doing that. I'm not dogging those folks out, but why don't we just open a school like I said?" And what I recognize is that if he as a black man and I as a black man came together and started a school in Harlem, then we could begin to push the conversation away from people giving us an education to us creating educational opportunities for our community.
Right.
And then I remembered that African Americans, from the time we've entered this country, had always had our own schools of some
Yes,
sort,
right.
schools that we had added, and started our own black colleges and the like. And it's figured, well, this brother might be onto something. Maybe we should start it. So actually, the plan was to go from Hartford to Harlem. Bridgeport wasn't expected.
Really?
Nah, I was. Once I made my decision to move on from Hartford, we were going to move on, and I was going to New York. And I met somebody here in Bridgeport, and then the governor and commissioner of State Department of Education. It all said that they had some things in mind, and that they wanted us to consider staying in Connecticut. And I was like, nah, I'm not doing that either. But
Right.
apparently nobody listens to me when I say
Right.
no.
No does not always mean no.
Apparently not.
Right.
So now we have a school in Bridgeport, which we're excited about, and we're opening a school in Harlem, which I'm really, really excited about.
That's awesome. So when does the school in Harlem actually open?
This summer.
Okay. And your school is, one of the things that I really wanted to kind of talk to you about was, that access to quality education. That's something that we hear, but in action, what does it actually look like?
What it looks like is a school that the people who work in it would want to send their own children to. What it looks like is a school that isn't complacent, isn't just saying, well, these kids are poor, these kids are black, these kids are Latino and Latina, their parents come from blah, 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 freaking blah. It's these children deserve the same information that any child who's going to school anywhere in the world should get.
Absolutely.
They should have, if children in the 5th grade can break down a paragraph and look for the main idea and identify the author's theme, then everyone should have that same access. And too many times, especially when we're educating students of color, what happens is we settle for the okie doke. We just accept that our kids are somehow inherently less intelligent. I gotta be honest with you. I don't understand why more people are not losing their entire minds when they see how the school system have categorically failed black Latino people.
Right. And you know what? And a lot of it is we have people that are stuck within a school system. So you go to school based on your zip code in a lot of instances.
Which is crazy.
Right. So that notion of school choice, and I know, having a charter school, that's something that you really feel strongly about. And sometimes, and I live in a suburban area, and I work with suburban, educators, and they can't understand why school choice is a choice that some individuals...
They made a school choice. They moved to the suburbs.
Right. Right, exactly.
I mean, that's
right.
Because how about this? If they don't believe in school choice, then let me pick their school. I got a couple schools I send their kids to.
Exactly. So
then they'll see how important school choice is. Oh, that's what you mean. Yeah, that's what I mean by school choice. And let me say something else. A lot of African Americans are under the misconception that just because you move to the suburbs, that your child is getting a suburban education. The data is really clear that you're not.
Right, absolutely. I mean, in just, we're on Long Island, and it's it's diverse in the population that's here, but it's very segregated in reference to the different towns that are on Long Island.
Look at the AP classes.
Right.
look at the advanced placement classes, look at the college prep classes, and then look at the special ed classes.
Right.
And then you'll see what I'm talking about.
Right.
You'll see more African American boys in special education classes, easily identified, early identified, most likely to be kicked out of class, most likely to be suspended or expelled.
Right.
Significantly so. Not even close. We're not even talking about a close comparison. We're talking about significant differences. Significant differences. And then which group would you see the least likely to be suspended, expelled, or kicked out of class? White women.
Right.
Those who are the students, who are the ones who are running the schools? Typically white women.
Yes.
So when we take a look at it, we see the school system is not meeting the needs of all children. If we were looking at it proportionately, then you see that the same number of children, the same percentage of children who are African American, who are most likely to be suspended, expelled, or kicked out of class, are the same ones who are in the AP classes. But that's not the case.
Right.
It's not the case at all.
Not at all. Not at all. And in some of those districts or some of those schools, AP classes might not even be offered. So,
well, in fact, what you'll find in many school systems that educate primarily students from historically disadvantaged populations, there are more children who are identified as special needs in terms of having limitations than there are children who have extended capacity through, let's say, something like advanced placement, or gifted programs, and that's the problem. I'm saying, listen, school system, if you suck at identifying children of color who are successful or capable of being successful in an academic setting, give them to me.
Right. Now, let me just ask you this. So, I'm a teacher in a school district. I'm in a public school district, and I want to be that. I want to be that voice. I want to help my students achieve that. How can a teacher who might not have, for whatever reason, they're teaching within a public school that has students who are low income, maybe, from disadvantaged homes or whatever the case may be, how can they impart that into their students? In other words, how can they be effective in, at teaching students that they might not, they feel defeated, maybe they don't feel supported? How can they achieve that?
There are great teachers everywhere, at every school. There are great teachers working in youth prisons right now.
Right.
There are great teachers everywhere. There's something being taught.
Sure. Right.
And so the only thing that stands in the way of a great teacher doing his or her job, which is to be a great teacher, is that individual. And to take it one step further, if you look at like people like Jaime Escalante, who stand and deliver, you'll see that this is a Latino man who taught in a poor Latino school system and took it upon himself to ensure that his students passed the AP exam, did so well that his own colleagues in his own building said he cheated. That ain't nothing but garden variety racism right there. When people can look at a child of color and say that that child is inherently less capable, I don't care if they call themselves a Democrat or Republican, liberal or conservative, that's racism from where I come.
Right. And the notion of high expectations, high expectations of your students is so important, and it really says a lot. It sounds like a simple thing to say, but how do you, with your schools, how do you make sure that your teachers have high expectations of their students, right off the bat?
It's interesting. We often use the term high expectations, and the expectations ain't even high. Is it high to say that a fourth grader should read at the fourth grade level? We're not even talking about being advanced.
Right.
We're just trying to get to fourth grade for fourth graders.
Right.
I mean, it's embarrassing to the word high to call what we're putting out there as high.
Right. But is it a mindset though?
It is a mindset.
Right.
So what we do is we don't offer up or accept excuses. I don't want to hear from people who I'm paying that the reason why the children aren't learning is because the kids don't want to learn. Then why'd they come today? You can't tell me they didn't want to learn.
Right.
I don't want to hear that. Yeah. They want to learn.
They're eager to learn. And when they're in the younger grades, they're excited about learning. And then something happens.
I went to see Hamilton yesterday.
Oh, nice.
And I was there with 1,200 Title I school children from all over the country. These same kids that everybody else says ain't nothing, ain't never gonna be nothing, they sat there in rapture. They applauded at the right parts. They essentially groaned at the right parts. And this extremely dense material, they stayed with that production the entire time.
Right.
Don't tell me these kids don't want to learn. Ain't nothing wrong with these kids. They're kids.
Right.
They're kids.
They're kids.
They are just kids. What
Yeah.
makes them amazing is that they're kids. What makes them aggravating is that they're kids. But what limits them are the adults.
Right, right. And not, you know, you were talking a little bit about the, you know, the suspensions and the rates of suspensions and expulsions and being kicked out of class. You know, in this country, we have a school to prison pipeline that, you know, affect our students of color. So how do we approach discipline in a way that doesn't end up being that way? Because you have this zero tolerance, that notion of zero tolerance. So how do you approach discipline in that way?
Well, some kids need to be suspended. Some kids need to be expelled, but very few.
Right, right.
What we do is we have to find as many creative strategies as possible.
Yeah.
But the best way to discipline children is to develop a relationship with them within which upon which you can lean. When things get ugly, you can say to that child, man, you're better than that. Why are you acting like this? This is the best that you can do. The only way that you can have that conversation with the child is if you have a relationship with them. You can suspend at home, you can beat, yell at, but if you don't have a relationship with this child, it doesn't mean anything. You just look like somebody hollering. So it's not going to yield. It's not going to yield a better result. One of the reasons why so many schools fail is because they fail to develop relationships with the kids. They don't have a relationship with this child, and since they don't have a relationship with this child, the child doesn't feel compelled to impress them.
Right.
When a child feels compelled to impress you, whether you're their parent or the pastor or their teacher or their coach, when they feel compelled to impress you, they're going to fall short. I mean, come on. We're talking about kids.
They're kids,
Grown people
right.
fall short. Your husbands, your wives, your partners.
Absolutely.
Your bosses, people fall short. I mean, it's just what people do. That makes them people.
That makes them human, exactly.
But you increase the probability of being able to expand how disciplined your children are by developing meaningful relationships with them. When kids know you love them, when they know that if they needed a ride in the morning, you would give it to them. When kids know they need somebody to stay after school with them, you give it to them. When kids know that you will cuss their little behind out because you need it, that's what they respect. They don't want somebody who's going to say you don't have homework tonight. They feel disrespected by that. They don't want somebody who's going to let them off the hook and let them act all kinds of fool. They want somebody who's going to look at them and say, do it again.
Right.
I dare you.
Yeah. And you know what, that is, it's really kind of similar to what a parent would do for their own children.
It is the exact same thing.
Right. And it's just so amazing and disheartening that individuals don't see that who work with children.
You got to like kids.
Absolutely.
Well, actually, I'm going to go. You have to love kids
Right.
to work with them.
Absolutely.
Liking them is not always easy. Kids can be real hard to like.
That's
They
right.
do some stuff that you like, man, I don't like you right now.
Right.
But if you love them, you get past
That's right.
that. And I have encountered, if I'm being honest, as many as 2/3 of the people I've seen who work with kids who do not love them. They don't love them. They don't love kids.
Wow.
And when people who work in education are being really honest, they would say, you know what, I can see anywhere from 66% to 2, I can see a third of people not like, 2/3 of people not liking kids.
Right.
I can see that.
It's amazing.
We all can, I have seen it. I'm telling you.
Me
It's most likely to be so among the people who are paid to do this, not among the volunteers. You're not going to go to an AAU coach or a Little League coach and see a bunch of them who don't like kids. They typically love kids. In fact, they like them too much sometimes.
Right. Absolutely. You know, to get into an educator, you know, and I think I've heard you say this is a calling. To be an educator, it's a calling. It really is.
Say that.
Yeah, it's a passion. You know, it's something that teaching isn't for everyone. You have people that get into the profession and they really don't understand what it means. It really means putting yourself out there for the children.
If you think for a second that the reason why a child didn't learn is because they don't want to learn, then you should stop teaching.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, so you're on an education truth tour. What is that about?
Well, you better ask Buffalo, New York, because I'm about to be there tomorrow.
Okay.
The teachers union is saying that they're going to rally. I hope they do. I'm going to take selfies with them if they do. Education Truth Tour is shining the light on these clowns who are trying to destroy our children's lives. It's about uplifting those people working in the trenches, make sure that our children have access to a quality education. It's about telling the truth and saying that I've seen too many people who are paid handsomely to educate our children,
Right.
and who do a really ugly job of doing so.
So, there's a lot of controversy around, like you said, the teachers there. They're planning to, you said, rally, protest, whatever.
I hope so. I really do. I hope they do.
What is it that makes you a controversial figure in those arenas?
What makes me controversial is that I say that all children can learn.
They can, but that's the
it's
truth.
A stunning notion.
Right.
I'm a regular rabble rouser. I'm a renegade, because I say that black kids, even poor black kids like I was, can go on to get a scholarship to an Ivy League school, not because we can run, catch, or throw a ball, but because we're academically sound to do so. I know it's a strange notion that in these here United States, in 2016, that we believe that black, Latino, poor white kids can become as successful, if not more so, than the middle class white and other people who are teaching them. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm that guy. I run around the country and I remind communities that regardless of your circumstances, your color doesn't matter. Your economic circumstances don't matter. And that it doesn't matter if your teacher's a black person or a white person. If that person is not committed, it doesn't matter. And so I know that the teachers union is one of the worst things that ever happened to public education ever. I know the teachers union is deeply committed to making sure that they keep people employed regardless of whether or not that person is a good person, whether or not they do the job. And I know that the teachers union is doing everything they can to convince the community that somehow their kids are just born dumb. It's not their fault. It's not the teacher's fault. So give them their summers off, let them go home at 2:06, and just deal with your little dumb kids. That's what makes me controversial, because I call these people out. I tell them that I know they're lying to our community, been lying to our community, and they keep lying to our community. But communities figured this thing out. Communities figured it out, and they say, hey, wait a minute. So this brother opened a school in the same school system that y'all said couldn't educate, in the same neighborhood.
Right.
Oh man, we got to have him come and tell us how he did it. And so then the teacher union said, wait a minute. Don't let him come up here and tell y'all that this can be done, because then you're going to mess around and start expecting we would educate kids.
Right. Okay. I got you. So now on this national tour, you've been going to, you're going to Buffalo, you said, tomorrow. And do you speak to the students within the schools, or is it teachers, or like who do you speak to? Yeah.
Parents have invited me.
Nice.
Which made this teacher union really
Got it.
mad.
Okay.
Now here's made the superintendent mad too, like I care.
Okay. Just 100% of your students that graduate from Capital Prep go to a 4-year school, or attend a 4-year school. There's this notion of a summer melt, where the students they get accepted to these schools, and then in September they may not go for various reasons. Is there something in your schools all year? So how do you help the students transition from being in this environment where they're nurtured and you guys give them a lot of support? How do they transition? Do you help them to transition to that?
A lot that we do. While they're in school, we set the expectations high, and we never discuss whether or not they're going to college. We just say they're going.
Right.
What is asking child, their opinion is, like, who cares, right? So they're going to college because they're our kids. Move on. Then what we do is we put them in college classes while they're still in high school, so we demystify the process of going to college, because they've been in college classes since they can remember.
Okay.
What we also do is we generally speaking, build up their self-esteem. And finally what we do is we help them select, or we pick what we believe to be the best colleges for them. So 100% of our graduates are accepted to 4-year colleges. According to the Clearinghouse, 96% of them enroll in the fall. 87% of them make it to their sophomore year. And 70% of them graduate in 4 years.
Nice.
By the way, those are suburban white numbers. That's not what you find in an urban school system. That's if you move to a community, they told you that 96% of their kids are going to enroll in college. We're not just talking about get accepted 100%. 96 are going to enroll by the fall, you would move there.
Right,
Most
absolutely.
people move there.
Absolutely. And that information you can find out, like you mentioned the clearinghouse, it is a great tool to figure out where our kids, where they end up. And that graduation rate of 70, what was it, 70 something?
30% graduate from college with a bachelor's degree.
Yeah.
We ain't playing.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, the national average is, I think, 36 or 37%, so that's fabulous.
When you go down to African Americans, it's in the teens.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. As I said, I was really, excited to have you here to talk about education. It's something that I feel passionate about as well. I think it's important to have individuals like you who are just as passionate and are doing great things to help our students who don't have the, access to quality education. So I thank you for that.
Well, sister, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and put me on your show. I still am at school, as you can tell.
Yes.
There's still children here, so I could go take care of that. Thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you. And just real quick, where can people, if they want to contact you or find out more about you and what you do, how can they find that out?
drsteveperry.org, or they can check me out on Twitter at drsteveperry.
Okay, well, again, I want to really thank you for being here, today, and I really enjoyed our discussion, so thanks again.
Likewise, be well.
Okay, take care. Thank you. And thank you for watching AAU Teen Talk TV, Conversations with Verdel Jones.